it's time to discuss nightmare matchups, both stylistically and individually. So what I mean by that is we're going to talk about the styles that give our favorite fighters fits, and I'm also going to talk about individuals that give our favorite fighters fits. If you're an Izzy fan, then you may not want to watch this unless you want a good warning of who not to fight. Otherwise, you may actually get a little worried because it's a nightmare, okay? Now, if you are, a Volk fan, well, you're going to have to leave your cope at the door at the start of this video. You're just going to have to deal with what his nightmare matchup is, and, we're going to be honest about this. It might piss you off, but we'll be honest about that, okay? So, anyway, let's get into this. It's time to discuss the biggest nightmare matchups for our favorite fighters and our least favorite fighters in the UFC, starting with Charles Oliveira versus the brothers. That's right. It's just the brothers that give him a tough fight all the time. Do you have a beard that looks like this? Do you have an accent that sounds like this?
And Dustin Poirier is a black belt. But he is.
This guy's strong, brother.
Please, brother. What do you mean, please?
Do you constantly feel the need to scream from the highest mountaintop that you're humble? Humble! Well, if that's you, then congratulations, you can beat one of the lightweight goats. Because we know how it is with Charles, man. And it's not just that Arman Tsarukyan is special and Islam Makhachev is special. They are, but that's not it. That's not the only reason. It's just that Charles Oliveira can't deal with these guys because they're too good to get submitted in his guard, okay? And Charles likes to welcome people down into his guard. That's where he likes to stay, but he's not good enough to submit these guys, so they end up racking up control time and just looking like the more dominant fighter in those positions. And because they can take him down, because they have good wrestling, and Charles has okay wrestling, not the best, well, it gets into his head. He freezes up. He doesn't let his hands go. He forgets to be aggressive on the feet. And it's just all about, I hope I don't get taken down, or if I do get taken down, I hope I can latch up a submission on the way. I mean, this guy is just not going to be able to perform at his best against these high-level Eastern wrestlers, the brothers, basically. If again, I'm not saying Mateusz Gamrot beats Charles Oliveira. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that a couple of days ago, I'm saying that ain't a fight. I'm saying that is the worst possible matchup in Mateusz Gamrot's life. Now, I'm thinking, wait a second, he actually has a bit of a chance. And that's kind of the point that I'm making. And I also think that these guys, they have a totally different style of personality to Charles. And although they tell us at every single chance that they get that they're the humble guys, and that they're, again, just so humble and so peaceful and all this, to be honest, I mean, they're actually kind of shit talkers. I'm not going to lie. At least Islam Makhachev, at least Khabib. Arman, maybe not so much, but he's saying things like Charles is only good at one thing, and Charles is just the direct opposite. He's filled with emotion. He's crying on fight week. I mean, goodness gracious. You've seen the videos of him crying listening to Brazilian gospel music, but I was watching like an Aljamain Sterling vlog today, and I believe Aljo's coach was talking about how they saw Charles in the sauna, and Charles was just bawling tears in the sauna. And I think that these like colder Russian guys or the mountain guys from the East, they just have a totally different way of thinking. And I think Charles is a bit of an easy target to these guys. They look at him as a little softy. Charles is like one of those soccer players where he's the toughest guy on the pitch. He's the most popular guy on the pitch. If you just freaking nudge him with the shoulder, next thing you know, he's balling. All right? The next thing you know, well, he's complaining to the ref, and he's got the whole stadium booing against you, and it's a big drama show, and I think that these guys just look at him as I said, a bit of an easy target, and I think that they actually get in his head. Before the fights, they got him speaking 100 miles per hour, and in the fights, once they take him down and Oliveira can't get the submission, he starts to worry that, wait a second, they can take me down, and I can't get a winning position down there, so I'm just going to be really scared about getting taken down, and that kind of makes it really hard for him to throw his hands. So everywhere you look, it's just not necessarily the best stylistic matchup. So what I'm saying is, we got to be honest about it. It's a bit of a nightmare matchup. Ciryl Gane versus Taking It for Granted. Man, I mean, what is it now? I think it's, well, to be fair, it's only 0-1 against Taking It for Granted. I still haven't gotten over John Jones making Gane look like light work. So I'm still coping a little bit, but at the end of the day, all the ducking, right? I just don't think he's that confident in his skills, and I think that comes from the fact that, you know, Gane's training is basically just doing jump rope and listening to this boom box music on Instagram. He's like sponsored by like one of these JBL Pulse companies that plays music. And that's kind of his training. He just sits there in his heavy bag and listens to the newest, latest, and greatest pop song that everyone's listening to. And there's Gane jump roping around, and he's the coolest thing since sliced bread. And he's got such a finesse style, and he can beat up all these fat guys and look like he's LeBron James in front of them. But at the end of the day, he takes it for granted. He takes the athleticism for granted. Gane is 0-1 because, I mean, look at how he showed up against Jones. That was not a man that got in the that's not a man that had any grit. That's not a man that was fighting tooth and nail. That's not a man that was yipping and kipping. We didn't see any yipping from him trying to get out of that submission. And I think at the end of the day, until we see Gane move to another location, another place, maybe the US, go to a gym with some real heavyweights in it, because he's training with, I believe, welterweights, which is kind of crazy. He did get in some work with Shamil to Blop Gaziev back in the day, but come on, it's Shamil. So I think that Gane needs to really stop taking it for granted, but until then, I think taking it for granted is going to win every single time. Now, guys, just hear me out because this one is going to be a little bit rough for a lot of the Izzy fans. That's right, Izzy's going to make the list, and I've got a nightmare matchup for him that he actually has a win over, and it's Alex P. It's Alex Pereira. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely hate saying this. I really do. I think this is kind of a dead horse at this point. I mean, we've beat the heck out of it. We've talked about it a million times. I really hate it. I really hate it, but we got to say it. Alex P is Izzy's daddy, okay? It's his papa. And at the end of the day, we're just going to have to be honest about it. Anything Izzy can do, Alex can do better. And anything he can do, Alex does better. Yeah! What's up? What's up? All right? Double champ. Win over Jan Blachowicz. Win over Sean Strickland. Let's be fucking honest. Alex made a big mistake when these guys fought at UFC 287. He was weight drained as hell. And that ain't even his real weight class. That's like TJ Dillashaw. But this time, TJ won the first fight against Henry Cejudo, and he won it in the 5th round, and his chin held up. Okay? So at the end of the day, you can say all this, you can say all that. Alex Pereira is a bad matchup for Izzy. He's the better boxer. He might not have the better defense, but at this point, I'm actually starting to notice Alex Pereira's defense. The parrying of punches, the framing of punches off of his arms. The lack of mistakes, where he was doubling up on left hooks and just throwing naked strikes up against the fence where he got caught by Adesanya. I think his defense is actually improving. And I think if these guys fight at 205, again, it's the same thing that I was saying going into their first couple of matchups. Alex Pereira is better at low kicks, and he can check the low kicks. So right off the bat, Izzy's bread and butter has to be just gotten out of the way. He gets shut down right there. Now, when it comes to the boxing, yes, the right hand of Izzy's an issue. He's fast early on in his fights. I'll give him that. But Alex has a really nice jab, and I even consider him the better boxer. Those body shots, jabbing to the body, moving upstairs. He was stepping on the foot of Jamal Hill, winning the outside foot battle and all that. I honestly really do think, and I'm not saying he won the outside foot battle just by stepping on Jamal Hill, but my point is, I mean, this is a really high-level striker that we're talking about. And he's dominating guys. He's knocking guys out. And he's looking the best he's ever been. He's got better body shots. He's got a better clinch striking game. He's got a better jab. He's got better low kicks. He's got the kiss of death. And if Izzy doesn't put his lights out in the first 2 rounds, if this goes the distance, Alex Pereira always outstrikes him. Just a tit-for-tat thing. I think he's got better shot selection. I think, as I said, his body shots are better. If they clinch, Alex is the better guy there too. And at leg kicking range, Alex is the better guy there too. Okay, so I think it's a nightmare. Every single time these guys meet, you got to go with Alex P. All right? I don't mean to be that guy, but I just have to say it. It still is a nightmare matchup for Izzy. And it's kind of tried, tested, and proven, and it's kind of worn out. And we've talked about it a million times, but I figured Alex Pereira, he's a nightmare matchup. Okay? On to the next one. Beneil Dariush versus Diapers. Now, this is a tale as old as time. Really a tough test for diapers because Beneil Dariush has been running through them left and right. And it just seems like no matter what he comes into the cage wearing, he's going to shit his pants. And it's going to affect the fight. And I think it's getting to the point to where you got to bring Huggies on the scene. You're going to have Huggies, which is probably the best brand in the diaper game. They're probably going to have to start making a design specifically tailored to Beneil Dariush. I mean, right now he's 3-0. I mean, it's even better than what Alex Pereira was able to do. Really a great nightmare matchup, and who knows? I mean, maybe we need like a best of 7. Maybe we need a best of 7 for old man Beneil, who's got the gray hairs and, you know, he's got the slow twitch jiu-jitsu style. I used to say this guy was like the wild man Makhachev, but actually, wait a second, he's easily frightened. Okay, so shout out to Beneil Dariush. He's absolutely killing the diaper game, just cutting through them like butter. Next nightmare matchup, heavy pressure wrestlers versus brick walls. Remember Darren Till was a brick wall? Remember when Calvin Kattar was a brick wall? Even a guy like Max Holloway, great takedown defense, but who's been shooting them consistently? And this is what I'm going to get into. We tend to overhype people's takedown defense quite a lot as MMA fans based on the stats, based on the couple of moments where someone shot a takedown on them and they shucked them off easily, right? Calvin Kattar was talked about as having great takedown defense, and it's like, who's really shot on him? Josh Emmett with 3 attempts, Dan Ige with 4 attempts over the course of 5 rounds. As soon as these guys actually fight people that consistently shoot multiple times around, more often than not, they get shown that actually, wait a second, they don't have that takedown defense. They're not that guy. Like Aljamain Sterling out-grappling Calvin Kattar, like Dricus du Plessis and Derek Brunson ragdolling Darren Till. Remember when Darren Till, I don't know, man, great takedown defense and all that. Why? Because Kelvin Tubby Man Gastelum shot a couple of flimsy takedowns with nothing on them and he stuffed it, right? Where did the idea of Darren Till's takedown defense even come from? I think sometimes it's just based on their build. They just look like a big stocky guy. Another example, Big Paulo Costa. I know that people are going to say things like, well, Costa's got great takedown defense. Well, really? Who's really shot? Did Marvin Vettori really shoot that often on him? I don't think so. Now, it's been a minute since I've seen that fight, but I'm guessing Vettori may have shot like, what, 5 or 6? And that's kind of it. Did Luke Rockhold really shoot all that often? Probably not. And I'm pretty sure Rockhold even got him down at one point, or maybe it was reversed. But I guarantee you, that guy can get taken down too. Yoel Romero only shot like 2 takedowns on him throughout the whole fight, and he took him down on one attempt. On one attempt, he took him down, and Costa didn't get up because the bell rang. So it's not like we even know if he would have got up. So anytime there's this striker with great takedown defense, if they've not fought a heavy pressure grappler before, we cannot just say, wait a second, I'm going to confidently pick him because of that takedown defense. Unless it's totally proven, like for example, Jose Aldo. His takedown defense has been proven against wrestlers that actually tried to shoot on him. For example, Merab Dvalishvili could not take down Jose Aldo at all. Could not even come close. But he was able to take down Henry Cejudo multiple times. All right, he was able to pick him up like a sack of potatoes. But not Aldo, right? Holloway, we talked about featherweight skill and all that. I think that the featherweights could really give Islam Makhachev some issues. But again, I would pick Islam Makhachev if he does fight Holloway, because I have a feeling that when someone actually does mix it up on Holloway quite a lot, they can maybe get him down every now and then. Volk has taken him down, fair enough, but Holloway's popped right back up to his feet. Well, a big guy like Makhachev, who's got a long, wiry max in front of him, could be able to get a body triangle, right? So, yeah, brick walls, they're usually no test for the heavy pressure grapplers like Movsar Evloev. I think that he could be a fun matchup for Max. I think Max probably beats him, but then again, it's like, we don't really know how he does against those types of guys. So actually, that's what makes it really fun. Next up, I know this might sound controversial, but I'm going to have to say it. Prime Volkanovski. And he's not on the right side of this nightmare matchup, guys, unfortunately. Any version of Volkanovski, in my opinion, loses to Ilia Topuria. I'm one of Volk's biggest fans. It pains me to say this, but I'm going to have to say it anyway. I think that Ilia is and always was, at least the version of Ilia that we have now. Like prime Ilia, maybe not the Ilia that fought Bryce Mitchell, maybe that would have been a bit too soon. But Ilya today, prime Ilya, who's just now getting into his prime, I think he beats every single version that Volk ever had, to be honest. And I understand there's this idea that, wait a second, no. Volk was coming off of a KO loss. Ilya Topuria's KO hardly counts because Makhachev softened up Volk's chin for Ilya going into that fight at UFC 298. But let's be honest, okay? Did Volk and his leg kicks really do shit? No. Did Volk's best shots, his jabs and his right hands and his, oh yeah, did that really do much? Volk's, I'm too fast for you? No. So what was it that Volk would have done to really pull away from that fight? Maybe it's cardio, maybe it's pace, maybe Ilya Topuria starts slowing down. But the last time I checked, one of the things that I noticed while watching that fight is that Volk was breaking a crazy sweat. And Ilya Topuria looked like he was hardly breathing, just chilling, moving his head off the center line, bouncing around, just waiting for that right moment. And he was also just a step behind. It's not like he was getting sunned out there. He was in there the whole time. Okay? Granite chin too. Volk doesn't have the power in his hands. Okay, I know he can TKO anyone in that division if he lands the right shot, but the point that I'm making is he was landing his best shots. We didn't even see one reaction. I think Volk has to be perfect for 25 minutes, and honestly, if it's a stand-up battle, I don't think it's possible to not make a mistake against Ilya Topuria. Okay? I don't think it's possible to evade the right hook of doom from Ilya Topuria for 5. Especially if you have a tendency in your game to move your head back in a straight line, chin up in the air without defending yourself, which Volkanovski tends to do. And so the point that I'm ultimately making is that right hook that Ilya landed was just taking advantage of a weakness that Volk has always had in his game. On a night where Volkanovski looked really good, he looked great in that fight. He looked fast. His speed was on point. He looked really solid. His leg kicks were looking great. But again, there's just not a lot of sting on his shots. And that right hook, I believe, would KO most people in that division. Fuck being softened up by a head kick KO 4 months later or 4 months earlier. Volkanovski, off of a whole year layoff, coming off of a win, is not taking that shot. All right, coming off of a win, he ain't taking that. So I think that Ilya Topuria is always a problem for Volk. I know that there's this idea that Volkanovski in his prime, not coming off of a KO loss would be way too much for him. I don't know about that. I don't know. He looked really good. That's at least what I saw. He looked great to me. He looked like Volk, looked like prime Volk. Really fast, on point, probably on that EPO too. And unlike when he's fighting most of these other featherweights, Volkanovski usually has like a big size advantage over these guys. I believe Ilya Topuria was actually like almost a pound heavier than him in the cage, which is really rare because again, Volkanovski usually has the weight advantage over these skinnier, wirier featherweights, but Ilya Topuria is kind of built like him and he's even bigger than Volk, which is crazy. And the last way for Volk to win is to out-grapple him. Is that possible? Yeah, but I mean, he didn't shoot any takedowns, so not that he couldn't get Ilya to the mat, but even if he gets him down, I don't know if he finishes him, okay? So I just think it's a matter of time before Ilya lands that right hook of doom, and basically every Volk fight where Volk still has that tendency in his game. If Volk was able to fix that tendency, I agree. His speed, his output, even a couple of takedowns here and there, I think he could maybe win that fight. And I'm not saying he can't win that fight in any way. I'm not saying he can't win it. I'm just saying I would never pick him because it's a nightmare matchup. It's a nightmare fucking matchup for Volk. Let's be honest about it. Let's stop saying things like, yeah, but it doesn't count. He was coming off of a KO loss. He looked amazing in that fight. We need to start really analyzing how a fighter looked in the fight, even before they lost. Sometimes it's too quick, right? Sometimes someone gets KO'd in like the first 10 seconds and we can't really say much to nitpick their game, but Volk looked great in that fight and still lost. It'd be really hard to make it another 15 minutes with a guy that was not slowing down, okay? And he just wasn't affecting him with his power. So I think that Ilya Topuria against any version of Volk is a nightmare matchup. It pains me to say that. I'm just happy that Volkanovski had his whole career, or at least had like a lot of success before he fought Ilya, all right? And I'm also happy that Ilya is not like the same age. Now he's just getting into his prime as Volkanovski's coming off of a loss against Makhachev, and There's, a little bit of a changing of the guard where now Volk isn't going to lose to Ilya 5 times in a row like Max lost to Volk. Let's get on to the next one. Next up, Alex Pereira versus all of the heavyweight division, aside from maybe 2 or 3 guys, which would be John Jones, Tom Aspinall, and Jailton Almeida. Outside of those guys, I think that Alex Pereira has a field day in the heavyweight division. I think he beats everyone, which doesn't really say a lot. To some people, that might sound crazy. Dude, what are you saying, man? He's just too small. This is the 3rd weight class. Relax, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes? Why exactly? Because Ciryl Gane's up there? Whoa, Gane. A guy that needs 250 strikes to even get close to a stoppage. Or talk about maybe Volkov, Alexander Volkov, another guy that needs, 450 body kicks to get close to a stoppage, that needs at least 100 significant head strikes to knock someone down. Listen, don't get me wrong, these guys are great, but Alexander Volkov is plotty as fuck compared to Alex Pereira, Glory Kickboxing World Champion, multiple-time UFC champion, middleweight skill. Let's relax. Let's chill out. Just because he looks like a Super Saiyan against Jairzinho Rosenstrike and old man Alistair Overeem does not mean he beats Alex Pereira. So I think Alex Pereira beats all these guys. I think that Gane, sure, you can look amazing. You can look like the best thing on earth against Tai Tuivasa, but it's Tai Tuivasa. He's out of shape. He doesn't even train. Again, this isn't like the 2000s in Pride where the heavyweights are the cream of the crop in everyone's eyes when people didn't know that actually, wait a second, the heavyweights aren't very good. People back then used to think the heavyweights were the cream of the crop. Heavyweights are the worst in the UFC, and they're the worst in MMA. It's the shallowest division. Alex Pereira, a guy that was a champion at 85 in multiple sports, now a guy that's been champion at 205, defended his belt. I think against basically all but 3, he easily beats these guys. So who else is there? Who else is a test? Jairzinho? He's too big. He's too strong. I don't think so. Plotty Sergey Pavlovich? Sure, he's got some nice straight shots, but he's still plotty. And how would he deal with someone leg kicking the shit out of him? No one other than Tom Aspinall has really leg kicked him, and Aspinall only got him with like a couple of low kicks. And those aren't Alex Pereira low kicks. Oh, but they're Tom Aspinall low kicks. Okay, give me a break. All right, Tom Aspinall's not known for his leg kicks. So yeah, if he wants to move up to heavyweight, as I said, it's going to be a field day for Alex. And I think that he actually is the first fighter in UFC history to have some real potential to be a triple champ, or at least to have a belt in 3 different weight classes. Now, I know that this may not age well, but I think that Anthony Hernandez, that's right, the middleweight grappling phenom, the Merab Dvalishvili that can actually finish people, crazy cardio with finishing ability at middleweight, never slows down. Also, unlike Merab, he actually has a granite chin, hella toughness. He just walked through Roman Kopulov's onslaught like nothing. I think that this guy beats every single middleweight striker that there is. Every single one. The well-rounded guys like Dricus du Plessis with power, I don't know. But every single pure striker for the most part, Sean Strickland, Jared Cannonier, hell, Robert Whittaker. Dude, come on, man. The same thing. Whittaker brickwall takedown defense. What's it really going to look like when someone consistently shoots on him? Okay? When someone consistently shoots on Robert Whittaker, what's it going to look like? Anthony Hernandez never tires out. And once he gets you to the mat, the pace is unbelievable. It's like round 1 Hamzat in every single round that he wants to take you down in. So I think that none of these strikers are going to be able to hang with this guy. And I honestly think he's my dark horse to become a champion right now. And he just had the dark horse championship fight with Roman Kopylov and he won, which speaks volumes. So I just can't see anyone lasting or standing with this guy or being able to get him off of him, right? So yeah, again, Merab Dvalishvili type of cardio, granite chin, ground and pound TKO ability, and a submission game. He's a nightmare for every striker. Let's get on to the next one. Islam Makhachev is back. And what is his nightmare matchup? Well, I don't think he has a nightmare matchup at 155. That's right. Even though Arman Tsarukyan is going to be a tough test, everything Arman can do, Islam can do better. There are a couple of guys. Don't even need to name them. We don't even need names. There's one thing that really gives this man an issue all day long, and that's featherweight skill, right? Featherweight skill is a problem for every single lightweight on this planet. Sure, Islam knocked out Volkanovski in the first round in their rematch, but come on. Fat version of Volk, coming off the couch, literally looking like a blob compared to his usual, pretty in shape look. He was also coming off of a bad injury too. Totally ruined his career going into that. Horrible weight cut as well. That is hardly anything that I'm going to take into account. I'm talking about Volkanovski moving up to 155 pounds and giving Makhachev the toughest fight of his entire life. I'm talking about Max Holloway moving up and giving one of the greatest lightweight strikers ever at his peak, and Justin Gagey at his peak, just kind of schooling him, knocking him out, rocking him all over the place, having a pretty clean looking performance. It's clear as day, featherweights are lightweight's biggest nightmare, and that is the same thing for Islam Makhachev, even if these guys aren't able to beat him. It's funny because, I've heard people in comment section saying that Max Holloway, he's got a real solid chance to beat Ilia Topuria, but no, not against Islam. And I know it's a different stylistic matchup, but just listen to me. Holloway is just screwed against Islam, but you're so excited to see him versus Dustin Poirier. Make some fucking sense. These lightweights are no match. At least the featherweights are always going to give him a test, always going to give him a run for the money with the featherweight IQ and the featherweight speed. And there's no doubt about it, the toughest fight of Islam's life was against a featherweight. Now, I obviously just said that Dustin Poirier is a lightweight, and obviously he is, but he used to be a featherweight, but he's been at lightweight for so long that you can't really consider him like someone that still has the featherweight skill. All right? I mean, he kind of did, and that's why he worked his way up so high, but he wouldn't have beat Volk, and he certainly wouldn't have beat Max. I'm talking about the top two featherweights. I'm talking about Topuria, Max, and Volk. Those are Islam Makhachev's toughest fights, straight up. I guess the featherweight skill applies when, you're within a year or two of fighting at featherweight consistently. If Max stays at lightweight for the next few years, he's going to become a lightweight, and the featherweights are going to come up and kick his ass. All right? That's kind of how it works. But, yeah, I don't really think that the average featherweight is like a tough matchup for Makhachev, but it's just always the case that there's a skill gap between divisions, and I see that when flyweights move up to bantamweights move up to featherweights move up to lightweight moves up to welterweight. Gilbert Burns doing well. Look at Conor McGregor. Featherweight speed moves up, fights Eddie Alvarez, destroys him, even though he had some welterweight fights in between. But come on, dude, Conor's not a fucking welterweight. But you get my point. On to the next one, Shamil the Blob Gaziev versus actually having a gas tank. Man, this is a tough one. Because I was thinking about maybe doing it the KFC and maybe just having a bucket of KFC and the nightmare being Shamil the Blob Gaziev, but I actually think I found a nightmare for Gaziev himself, so he's going to be on the wrong side of this. It's having a gas tank. Shamil the Blob Gaziev gets his workouts over with. He hates it, okay? But he's tough, and he's gritty, and he'll do the freaking work, all right? He'll do the work, but you got to go above and beyond sometimes, Shamil. You actually have to put in the extra hours, and the extra hours can't just be you slugging and trudging along the freaking pavement in 130-degree weather. It's a little bit too hot. I think that'll zap the wind out of you, so that's kind of what it is. Shamil's training in 140-degree heat in Bahrain in the summer, and he wonders why he doesn't have a great gas tank, because, dude, that'll take the wind out of you. That'll zap your energy. How are you supposed to show up on fight night when you're never able to push past your limits, because you get to those limits within a minute, and there's nothing you can do to get past them in the freaking heat? So, yeah, he's just not in the best shape. Speaking of being in great shape, though, don't get me wrong. I know code MMA for 30% off can be a little bit overwhelming too, but at the end of the day, that's not where it stops. You see, we're not only bringing you big, tasty comfort foods from around the world. Also, every single dish in the Real Food Cookbook is made with whole and unprocessed ingredients. And not only that, don't get me wrong. I love the bro diet. I love chicken and broccoli, but it gets tiring and you can't stick to it. So at the end of the day, if you're trying to eat big, hearty comfort foods, And we're talking sweet comfort foods from around the world. We've got cookies, we've got ice cream, we've got brownies. Beware of the brownies. I'm not actually a fan of the brownies. They're not very tasty, but they're in the cookbook. There's the only dish I don't like. Every other dish is pretty good, okay? We've got the buffalo chicken wrap. We've got the tortilla de patata. We even have a bolognese. We've got a chimichurri steak. We've got a butter chicken. We've got a pineapple chicken. I mean, it's here. It's here to stay. It's been around. And I just honestly think that, listen, at the end of the day, you can say this, you can say that. You can do this, you can do that. The Real Food Cookbook is the way to go. So anyway, shout out to the Real Food Cookbook, the sponsor of the channel. That is it, though. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are your favorite nightmare matchups? Are there any that I didn't mention? Until next time.